All right, so
I have to give you a little bit of credit for this.
Yeah, we can overdub it later. Just
I haven't had any crazy stories about. Oh wait, no, I do. I got robbed at gunpoint, mugged.
Checking for me, but I ain't checking for them. No.
Sleazy real estate guys. But
all right, so today's episode, we have with us a gentleman known by many names. Some know him as Cosme de Jesus, some know him as Coach Cosme, and some know him as just Cos. He's Delaware's strongest man under 200 and founder of Forging Legends. With us is Cosme de Jesus Gonzalez. Cos, how you doing?
Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. I'm going to shake your hand here. I appreciate you making the time on a Friday nights. This has been in the works for a while. I want to say maybe at some point in the first quarter of this year.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
We met up at the Cigar Lounge over in Trolley Square. We met for the first time. We had a good group with us. And then we just pretty much shot it up, talked to one another, got to know each other a little bit more, and set up today to sit down and get to know you and your story. How are you doing?
Great. How are you?
Good, good. So we're going to go through a lot of things. So we're going to go into your upbringing, your background, just so people get to know who you are a little bit more. I know there's going to be people watching this that already know you, but what I hope, my goal here is to not only tell your story, but also your mission, and hopefully some people get to see maybe a little different side of you, maybe something they didn't know about you.
Right.
So before we do that, though, if you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, share it, the video, and turn on the notification bell for many more episodes to come. So, Cos, tell me, where were you born?
Where was I born? Chester County Hospital.
Okay, Chester County. Okay, and did you live in that area?
I grew up in Avondale for like a few years, like Tough Kenneman, Pennsylvania for a little bit, and then I moved into Ellesmere when I was about 5.
Okay.
So I've been in Delaware for a long time.
Ellesmere, okay, 5, okay. And so you were there 5, and do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have 3 brothers, a sister, and then a half sister that passed away. But
I'm sorry.
yeah, it's okay.
You have a big family.
Yeah.
3 brothers. Are you the oldest or the youngest?
I am second oldest.
Second oldest. Okay. And tell me a little bit about the household. What did the household look like? There's a mom, dad, family. What was that dynamic? What was your essentially role in there?
I guess we're moving fast on this one. So, for most of my life, like my dad was kind of in and out. So there's a little bit of that going on. But for the most part, like pretty much all my brothers and sisters and my mom were like all in the house, except for my half sister. I never really met her in person.
Okay. Okay. So you were of the of the gentlemen in the household. You were in the middle.
Yes.
Right. You were in the middle. So I know typically when you're saying that your father was in and out, how was that for you in terms of like, because I know if you're the only child, you kind of feel like you have to step up and be the man of the house when dad is not around.
Yeah.
What was that for you being in the middle?
Well, my sister is like the eldest, but out of my brothers, I was the oldest brother, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
So, I mean, I felt like I had to grow up fast, but more than anything, I felt like I just had to accomplish something. I felt like something had to get done at some point.
Okay.
Or like being productive, like avoiding like an addiction-based lifestyle.
Okay.
So stuff like that.
Okay. And tell me about your high school days. What was high school like for you?
Oh, high school, I was like just like a socially awkward kid.
Okay.
Like obviously people knew me because I had like a strange name that no one else had.
Okay.
But more than anything, I guess like I hung out with all sorts of different people. I hung out with a lot of athletes because I like to play backyard ball a lot.
Okay.
So like I played a little bit of baseball, not much, but mostly soccer, and I played some backyard football and stuff like that. I wasn't good, but I played it.
But you took part in a lot of sports. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your name. So we're talking about this off camera, and it's Cosme de Jesus, right? So when you have a first name line and a last name line, you're writing Cosme de Jesus, and then Gonzalez on the last name.
Well, legally, De Jesus is my middle name, but my mom told me De Jesus is your first name with Cosme because it's a sentence. Okay. So it's like,
All right, I say, because, I have 4 names. Emilio Pastor. No, Emilio Denise Pastor Albarracin. I just go by Emilio Pastor. But it's always complicated. Like I was telling you off screen, is that when I'm filling out forms, I run out of characters sometimes, so that could be a pain in the ass. So has that ever happened to you?
I just put in Cosme Gonzalez.
There you go.
And then sometimes I'll put my middle initial, and
Yeah.
that's kind of it.
Yeah, I totally hear you on that. Now you mentioned the sports aspect of your high school days. Tell me about academics. How were you academically?
I mean, I got into college, but I wouldn't say I was like amazingly gifted at anything.
Do you remember your GPA?
It was like 2.6, 2.7.
Okay.
So it was like average at best.
Okay.
But I mean, there was some semesters where I got like a 3.2 or 3.4 if I like really enjoyed the classes.
Yeah.
I never really found myself enjoying school.
Okay.
Like ever.
So let
There
me
were
ask
certain
you,
classes that I liked.
what was your
but
favorite class aside from gym? Because that was like a lot of people's favorite class.
Surprisingly, I didn't really like going to the gym until like early college.
Okay. So if was there any class you look forward to during the week?
I really liked music.
Okay.
So I was in band for a little bit in middle school and high school.
Okay.
And that was like one of my outlets. Like
Okay.
I liked playing music. I liked playing video games. I liked comic books and stuff like that. I was a dorky kid growing up.
Okay.
So like keeping to myself for the most part. And then when I would socialize, I would play a sport or something like that.
And if you had to pick one or the other when you were in school, which one of the two would you have picked? English or math? I was gonna say English or Spanish. Man, I need to get off this content.
No, but I preferred math just because there's always one answer.
Okay.
With English, it's like you can be right as long as you have a good point that you can make out of it. You
Yeah.
know? Or if your, theory or whatever lines up with your explanation.
That almost sounds like politics. And it doesn't
To me,
even
at
have
least.
to be right. Yeah.
Because technically you could be right.
Yeah, that's I would have expected you to say English just based on the fact that you said music, because it's more creative. It's more creative, like part of your brain. But you're saying math would have been your pick over English.
Well, when I play music, I don't like pop music.
Okay.
I would play like prog, jazz, funk.
Okay. And you were mentioning earlier
Yeah.
you played the bass,
Yeah.
and so you started that then.
I started playing bass like late high school or early college years.
Okay.
Before then, I played clarinet, but I kind of fell out of love with it a little bit.
I wonder
But-
how do you come across and say I want to play the clarinet? Because the only person I've ever seen actually play clarinet is Squidward.
Right.
I don't know anybody else.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just played it.
There you go.
That was kind of it.
Okay.
And, and the bass playing was kind of by accident because my friend was like, "Hey, we're gonna start a band." I'm not technically not friends with the guy anymore, but like originally they were like, "Oh, we need a bass player. You should be a bass player." I was like, "Why not? I'll try something different." And I started playing it. I enjoyed it. It was for the most part self-taught. I was just looking up tutorials on like techniques that I liked. And I was like, oh, I like how that sounds kind of like a piano. I like how this sounds kind of like a drum.
Yeah.
Like different techniques in the bass, like double thumbing on the bass.
Yeah.
I learned how to do the complicated stuff before the basic stuff.
Okay.
And it's so backwards. He's already nodding because he knows. Like everyone's like, oh, well, you should learn how to like, play with your fingers first, or like learn how to play with a pick. And I didn't do that. I like tapped the bass first. I would double thumb and stuff like that. And then I learned how to play with my fingers, which is kind of backwards.
There you go. Oh yeah. So I learned. My thing was the piano, right? My mom was married many years ago to a guy who was a retired NYPD officer.
Nice.
And I remember him pulling out these keyboards. I think it was one of like 40 something keys, like one of the smaller ones. And out of the closet was going to throw it out. I was like, no, screw that. Let me mess around with it. And you could actually go on YouTube. There's a video of me when I was 15, which is now freaking God knows how long ago, like a long time ago. And it's just me messing around with the keys playing Sia, because Sia used to be one of the people I used to like listen to. And then I taught myself, all like the complicated songs, because I like playing those songs, but I never knew how to read music.
Right.
I never knew. And then I started learning backwards. Once I was like in school learning in piano class how to read music and stuff like that. So I get somewhat where you're coming from. Do you still play today?
Not really, not as much. I fell a little out of love with music just because of, the environment. There's parts of it that I really enjoy. Like I like how welcoming the community is, but it kind of came more down to like when we were playing at bars and stuff. My friend would be like, "Oh, let's come down to the car and hang out," and then they just start like ripping a bong or like
yeah.
like smoking weed and stuff. And I was like, I'm straight edge. I have like no business with this.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Not that I don't like my friends or anything,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it was just like I don't feel like being exposed to drugs and alcohol as much.
Right.
So I was like,
and that's that's almost like the culture of that, no?
a lot of it is, yeah.
Yeah.
So like, and a lot of things you'll notice with a lot of musicians kind of doesn't line up for good business. When you like think of it in the long run, like a lot of musicians never show up on time. They never do anything on time. If you ask them to have a deadline, they usually never meet it.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of stuff that like people tend to bail a lot in that industry. And you're just like, man, it's hard to find like good band members.
Right.
So it's like something that was like really tough back
So
then.
is it more that you fell out of love with the industry more than the instrument itself?
I still love my instrument. Like I'll play it at home sometimes, but it's more like when I would go to shows and stuff and I would see like all the, the substance abuse in a sense,
Yeah. Yeah.
It kind of came more down to that, like really turning me off from it.
Okay. Tell me about, now this is a term you used that I had actually not heard before until you said it. And I'm going to pull it up here in just a second. Let's see here. And it's the term of straight edge. And I actually never heard about it until you and I spoke. So I looked it up. And then you can tell me if this aligns with what you're speaking to me about. It says, straight edge is a subculture and philosophy that originated in the early 1980s hardcore punk scene and involves abstaining from certain substances and behaviors. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it's basically avoiding addiction in a sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how is it that, because a lot of people kind of end up in that culture, right? How is it that, like, what is it that took you apart from that?
Well, it's not necessarily that like I didn't like the hardcore community or anything like that, but like obviously the band I played in, it was like at that time it was like a we were like a weird blend between like blues, metal, like jazz and a bunch of other stuff. So it was like we just played kind of whatever we liked to play and kind of just put it all together somehow.
Yeah.
But long story short, a lot of the musicians I played with, there was just a lot of like coping with like drugs and alcohol was like a big thing.
I see.
Like one of the guitarists we would play with, like anytime he had money, it was like, oh, I'm going to go buy beer. And then he got drunk to play. And then we were like, you can't really be productive if you're like drinking the whole time, you know?
Right. And one of the, along with that definition, I found some under substances, they said, straight edge people avoid alcohol, tobacco, recreational drugs, marijuana, and other mind-altering substances. Some avoid also caffeine and prescription drugs. Does that sound accurate with you?
Yeah, that
so
lines
even
up with me.
caffeine.
Yeah, I don't really do any caffeinated beverages.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for behavior, straight edge people may also avoid promiscuous or casual sex, and some practice veganism and vegetarian. How do you say that?
Vegetarianism.
Yes, that.
I don't
that
go
word.
as far as that. I was vegetarian for a very short period of time because it got me sick.
Okay.
So
okay.
red meat is okay. Maybe not for like moral reasons for some people, but you know.
And I'm interested in this because you're one, the only person I've ever heard use this term, and two, I imagine that this bleeds into other departments of your life. So tell me how that, you're telling us how it took you away from that scene, but I'm also curious to know as to how that plays into your life overall.
Well, when I was getting into college, I didn't have a very healthy lifestyle, but that was like one of the things that I like took with me, right? Because like the main thing that my dad did is he would, go to a casino, gamble all night, and then who knows if we saw him next week or whatever, right? So a lot of his whole thing before like I turned 15 is he would drink a lot until like one of my uncles died, and then he stopped drinking.
Yeah.
So it was like I never want to put a substance or any kind of addiction over my children when I have them.
Absolutely.
So I said, ever since like I was like of the age of understanding what was going on, I was like, I'll never live into that ever.
Yeah.
So ever since then, like people offer me alcohol, cigarettes, whatever. I just say no.
Yeah.
I think only one time I've ever accepted a drink of alcohol, and I didn't really enjoy it. So I was like, oh, no harm, no foul. I have nothing to gain here. I don't enjoy the taste of any of this stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I don't see the joy of it.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Because I imagine that impacts your life also socially.
It does. Mm-hmm.
So what does that look like in terms of your social life?
I mean, for the most part, like, I still have fun. I just do it differently.
Yeah.
That's really all it is.
What does that look like for you?
I mean, when it comes to like social events, like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with drinking water. I mean, you can still go on a dance floor and not be drunk. You don't have to be drunk to do that. But it always leads to a question of, why are you sober?
Yeah.
So like, I mean, sometimes I'll answer and be like, well, my first memory was my dad coming home drunk. So like, it kind of goes to that. But I mean, I don't think it matters that much in a sense.
Oh, yeah. No,
I don't ask you, why do you drink?
True.
So why does it matter that much?
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. So let me reel you back in, and I appreciate you going into that because it's something I was very interested in because, you know, it's one of the things that stood out to me about you. As silly as it may sound, wow, you don't drink. What the hell? Who are you?
Why does it matter? Yeah.
No, it's just interesting to know because there's a lot less people like you and a lot more people like the other. So taking you back to high school a little bit here, tell me how you were. You said you were socially awkward a little bit.
Yeah.
Were you, let's say, were you the guy that was in the back of the class, in the front of the class, in the middle?
It depends the class.
Okay.
So, like, if it was like math class, I would say closer to the front just because, like, I enjoyed math. I enjoyed science. Like, I liked more of the logistic stuff. And then when it came to, like, more of, like, I wouldn't say necessarily art, but, like English. Yeah, probably just English, honestly. Yeah. Everything else, like, I was, like, a little more, like, excited to be in there for.
Okay.
And obviously, like, when I was in high school at Del Castle, they give you a shop. So I was in medical assisting. I really enjoyed that. And that was, like, one of my favorite subjects up until, like, I guess, like, college.
So what about when you would go into the cafeteria? You know, did you have someone you would sit with in particular? Were you more the guy that would sit by himself?
I would go to the courtyard, and there was, like, a few friends. We would play hacky sack and stuff like that. Or I would just, like, randomly change seats depending on, like, what day of, like, the week it was or if we were even allowed to be outside.
Yeah. So socially,
it just depend.
Socially, you were, like, while you were a little bit more reserved, you were, like, kind of in the middle. Is what it sounds like. You could get along with pretty much anybody.
Yeah. For me, being social, it just depends on, like, my mood almost.
Okay.
So it's like I can be really social, but then there's times where I just don't care for it depending on the environment.
Okay. And what did life look like for you after high school?
After high school, so
you said you went to college.
I went into college, and then I was in a relationship, like, when I was getting my associate. Well, technically, I never really got my associates, but when I was starting up school at Del Tech, because I didn't have enough money to stay at Wesley College, which is a whole different thing, right? So I went to Wesley College. Didn't financially afford it, so I went to Del Tech, and then I just, like, started playing music, and then got in a relationship. It didn't go well, and that's what led me to the gym and stuff.
Yeah. You know, which is a common thing you find nowadays, especially like you see on social media.
The villain arc.
Yeah.
That basically happened to me.
it's like a breakup happens or heartbreak happens, and it's like you know, I'll see you at the gym or something like that. Okay, so tell me about your time at Del Tech. So you went to Del Tech because it was more financially affordable, which I went to Del Tech too, by the way. I went to the Wilmington campus, and I did general business and business management there. Nice. So what were you doing at Del Tech?
I was mostly doing biological sciences because I was going to transfer to UD, and eventually I did do that. I transferred to UD for the biological sciences program, and I was originally going to go for med school after that, but I had terrible grades, so they were like, don't even bother taking the MCAT. And I should have fought it a little bit more, but there's a part of me that was just like, I really don't have the grades. I'm taking care of my nephew right now. Like, it was around that time. So it was just like, does it really make sense for me to, like, pursue this and, like, not do as well as I'd like to do? And that's kind of what it led into.
Okay.
So I changed my degree to nutrition sciences once I got into, like, a few years at UD.
Okay. And so you told me, you know, in high school, you weren't really into the classes. right? And then you told me in Del Tech, you either did well or didn't with grades.
Yeah.
So tell me, were you just not? Did you just didn't have the interest in the academic system, or I
think
mean, you mentioned taking care of your nephew.
Well, a lot of it was working too.
Uh-huh.
So like a lot of people when they're in college, they don't have a job. They don't
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And that was super weird to me. But like
Yeah.
at Del Tech, everybody has like a job because they're like,
Right.
like a little more adult. I hate to say it like that,
Right,
but
right,
like
right.
you go to UD and you realize half of these guys already have their life made for them.
Uh-huh.
Their parents like own a yacht or something like that. I hate saying it like that, but it's like, wow, all these kids are rich.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, oh, I'm not.
Yeah.
I actually have to work to be here.
Yeah.
So, like I was working in a restaurant till like 2, 3 in the morning.
Yeah, what
and I would
restaurant?
go to school. I was working at Homegrown Cafe.
Okay. Oh, we're in New York?
Yeah.
They have great bottomless mimosas.
Yeah, I worked that brunch. I'm sure you saw me then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, which is interesting to me, right? Because I get where you're coming from with that. Like,
Yeah.
financially, I have to support myself and with academics and all that stuff. So I always understood it. And to me, coming out of college without any student debt was also really important to me because I would always hear nightmare stories about how the kind of debt people will acquire over the years and then almost never live to see the day of paying them off. So tell me about that. Like, do you think it's almost a disservice for kids that don't know what that's like, or like, what do you think about that?
Well, when I went into college, I learned really fast after going to Wesley. Hey, like if you don't pay like whatever the tuition is at a minimum, you don't get to stay.
Yeah.
And most people don't qualify for a loan if their parents aren't wealthy.
Yeah.
Like if for whatever reason the loan company that wants to give you money in a sense,
Yeah.
because it's pretty much what they're trusting you with,
Yeah.
is a bunch of money that weirdly enough they're going to trust you with, but you can't run your own business or whatever. But anyways,
Right.
we'll get into the politics of that later.
Yeah.
But long story short, they were like, hey, your parents can't afford to keep you here, basically. And I was
Yeah.
just like, whoa, that really sucks. So I had to go like $4,000 out of pocket to pay that. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to go to Del Tech. And then just like try my best to like pay off for classes during the summer.
Yeah.
So I could get as many credits as I could in, because I
Yeah.
basically lost a semester after that.
Right.
And then from there, I kind of just said, well, I paid off most of my loans. And then anytime I got a check from like the Pell Grant, whichever was the financial assistance program at the time.
Yeah.
Instead of using that check to buy something stupid, I just paid for more classes. I paid off my UD classes that way. I used it to like buy my books and stuff. Like if for whatever reason I wasn't covered.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I did to afford it a little easier. And now I have like what, 16 grand left
Yeah.
for my loan. So
There
I'm
you
like
go.
almost done.
Yeah. And now, what are your thoughts on this? Is you had to almost like forcefully had to learn money management in your own, learning your income, your expenses, managing all that. One of the things that went around in the past couple of years was, not to get into politics, is the whole student debt forgiveness. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it depends. Like if you had an easy time giving them the money without really thinking about the process behind it, I feel like you're also part of the problem, aren't you? Like
Yeah.
to a certain degree, because
Yeah.
you just like, also, why would you give someone such a high interest rate to the point where it's like comparable to like not a credit card, but like some of them are in the upper 8%.
Yeah.
And I just find it like a little unfair, because when the pandemic did happen, you basically forced people not to work for 3 to 6 months, and that
Yeah.
kind of ruined some people financially to a
Absolutely.
point where like there is no way they can pay for it,
Yeah. Yeah.
And for those people, I do think there should be some form of forgiveness for that.
Yeah.
I don't think they necessarily have to give them $50K.
Yeah.
But I do think they should make up for that 3 to 6 month period that everyone was forced not to work.
Okay.
That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's just, okay. So tell me about, and this is something we were talking about earlier, the specific degrees some people get into.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think... Ooh, got something stuck in my throat.
No, that's all right. That's been me the entire time.
So, what I think is, if you do get a degree, you should get a job that at least makes the return you're looking for, that'll pay off the debt rather quickly.
Yeah.
You know, like if you get a degree in something that's like, I hate to say useless, but like
Yeah.
not going to financially serve you,
Yeah.
then that might be something to consider. Like I would not recommend for someone to get into like a degree in like the social sciences unless they plan on like working in a museum or working in a classroom, because chances are they're not really going to get a job.
Yeah.
You know, like gender studies doesn't really pay bills.
Yeah.
You know, most of those people just do protests and work in a school because that's
Yeah.
all they can really get a job in
Yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think people fail to do that a lot these days is they don't see, because that's literally what it is. At the end of the day, your education is an investment, and people don't see what the marketplace is offering outside of education. Like once they're done, done with it, and then they're almost like surprised that their education is not paying off.
I mean, at the end of the day, too, like sometimes you realize that the degree doesn't always serve you. Like,
Yeah.
I got my degree in nutrition sciences, and I feel like it was the biggest waste of my time because I learned the same stuff on YouTube. I learned the same
Yeah.
stuff reading the same articles, anyways.
Yeah.
So it was just like I could have saved 4 years of my life
Yeah.
just figuring it out myself
Yeah.
and being self-paced. You know,
Yeah.
like
So you did get your degree.
I did get my degree in nutrition sciences. Yes.
Yeah. So now this is something a friend has told me a long time ago, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Is one, not apart from what he said, is that no one could take your education from you once you earn it.
Right.
And then the second one was that he told me was that a diploma is a legal form of discrimination.
It can be.
So what are
I'm
your
not
thoughts
completely
on that?
disagreeing with that.
Yeah.
I do think a lot of mine. I mean, if you've gone to UD, you know how many people of color are in the classroom. You can literally count them.
Yeah.
So there is some truth to it.
Yeah.
Now, is some of it also part of like our culture not really caring about college, not really caring about higher education?
Yeah.
That's part of it too. Because we grow up with hustle culture from the second we're born.
Yeah.
And we're told we need to work as hard as possible. And that's not necessarily what makes you thrive in life all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it just depends.
So when I say legal form of discrimination, I don't necessarily mean as the term that we know it to be. I mean in terms of like when you're applying for a job, if there's two people, they're always going to choose the one person with discrimination. I mean with a degree versus not. So it's almost to a sense, it's like you got to play the game. What are your thoughts?
I don't necessarily like. I mean, for myself, like when I decide to have employees, if I ever get that far along, I kind of like being self-employed right now. But if I ever have employees, I don't care if you had a degree. Like, what's your application with your knowledge?
Yeah,
that's what I care about. If I were to employ people, like, because I've met people with degrees who were so unskilled and like have, I hate to say no talents, but like it looks like they're just good at listening to what you have to say, and then they just do it, and that's cool. But that's not going to be of great service when I could literally get that with someone without a degree, who isn't going to ask me for like 2 to 3 times as much money. It just depends on what they're trying to do. Yeah, there's some stuff that does require it, but there's a lot of jobs that don't.
Now, I want to ask you this: is one of the things you brought up earlier about the lifestyle from being in a band was that all the drugs and all that stuff, it made people like not be on time, not always be behind, that they would never get anything done at a certain deadline they either set or was set for them. So do you think that even if the degree is useless, the fact that in terms of earning potential, the fact that they went through those 4 or 5 years to get that degree at the end of the line is beneficial versus not?
I'd have to really sit down and talk to the person, really have an idea. Because like the people I've met in college, the people that I've worked with in a restaurant in college, most of them are just like doing all the same stuff that people did like when I was playing music. It was like no different from that, right? It's this big party culture, right? Yeah. So like if you tell me you're in a fraternity, I'm gonna have negative assumptions about that. Okay. So like not saying all guys that are in a frat are bad, because I learned like when I was working at a restaurant that there's a lot of really nice frat boys out there that aren't scumbags. Yeah. But like 9 times out of 10, hate to say it like that, but like you know you run into a few people that are like that and they fit that demographic, and I'm like, would I care to hire somebody like that who just worries about the weekend more than anything? It's like, do you really want to work with somebody like that? I don't know. Yeah. Okay. That's my 2 cents.
No, and like totally I appreciate your point of view, because I get a lot of different points of view on it. One, and the reason why I brought it up the way I did is because I have talked to someone that runs a law firm, and over in Wilmington, and he says specifically, I don't give a shit. One of the things I would say is I don't give a shit where you got your degree from or what you got it in. Is the fact that you went through those 4 years or 4 or 5 years and was able to withstand all that pain in the ass with the deadlines, the pressure, all those kind of like
group
real life
projects and
skills,
stuff, yeah.
all those real life skills that translate to a real job. That no matter what the role, that is why I want you to have it. Now, I also understand where you're coming from in terms of, I think when you start more diving into street smart versus book smart, and how, some people might value street smart over book smart because it kind of has to do more with real life experience versus textbook experience.
Well, the other thing too is a lot of these people who have their degrees, they don't have any actual work experience. Like we were talking about earlier, there's a lot of people who go to college and never do a job. Or they have their first job after they've already gotten 2 to 3 years into college. I've been working since I was 13.
Yeah.
So I know what a good worker either looks like or doesn't look like. So like just by having that work experience.
Yeah.
If you talk to somebody like them and you give them a hard task, they think they're too good for it half the time.
Yeah.
I don't want somebody like that being my employee.
Right.
Regardless of what the wage is.
Yeah. So it ultimately for you comes down to that interview process. How you gauge them, the vetting.
It would come down to that and just general experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be perfect at-hand experience. Like I'm not expecting someone to have 15 years of experience with, their degree. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But if someone has like good experiences that can correlate or they know how to apply the knowledge that they got from every job they've done, that's valuable.
Yeah.
Or if they have a lot of skills.
Okay.
To me, it's more about skills. If you have a lot of skills, you're worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. And that's how, as a business person, like that's something I've learned recently. It's not about what you know, it's about what you can do. Because like what you know can change all the time. Like the stuff I know now could just blatantly be wrong, or it could change in a certain way where I maybe think about it differently. But like overall, like the skill sets that I have, that doesn't really change.
Yeah.
Like if you know how to change a tire, you know how to change a tire.
Yeah.
You know how to build an engine. That's a valuable skill, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to coaching, it's like if you know how to communicate with people, if you know how to write a program, if you understand like the basics of like the science to it, you don't necessarily need a degree for that.
Right.
But those are valuable skills to have as a coach.
Right. So ultimately, how valuable are your skills in the marketplace?
Or just how many do you have?
How many do you have?
Like just having a lot of skills, I think, is more valuable than having a degree, in my opinion.
Yeah. So you switched your field of focus during college, and you ultimately, a couple ways we could go here. You ended up getting into fitness.
Yeah.
Right. So how did that transition happen?
So when I started my villain arc, I basically got into powerlifting. Like I wanted to have like a body transformation because I really hated the way I looked. I didn't like myself, the whole 9 yards, that whole thing. So it was like a big self-hatred sort of thing. And then I was like, I'm going to lift heavy weight.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, and then I started having fun with it. I was like, oh, like it's kind of cool to squat, bench, and deadlift and like get a lot stronger. So I started off like powerlifting.
Yeah. And
I would look up all these all these interviews and stuff that they had at like what was it, Slingshot or Super Training Gym?
Yeah.
With Mark Bell. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, but I learned all of my tutorials were like learned from there. I learned from like Untamed Strength and all that stuff. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
To like figure out how to do this stuff and like make myself stronger in a sense.
So for those that don't know, what's your definition or the textbook definition that you know to be powerlifting?
Powerlifting is squat, bench, and deadlift. That's how I started at the gym. I mostly did that stuff. Originally, I got a job as a bouncer and I wanted to get bigger. And then I was like, I trained the bodybuilding stuff. I didn't really have fun with it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, this getting stronger stuff is so useful. My job's easier. I still get bigger, but I also like can just like be more useful in a sense. I hate saying it like that, but like in terms of strength, like more useful. Like I can move heavier objects, or I can move my furniture a little easier, or I can just have an easier time doing my job. So like that was like the main draw for it is like I got this immediate feedback and this immediate like draw to like just like feeling like I was finally doing something right. Yeah. That's like the big ticket that I was getting out of that.
So how old are you when you got into powerlifting?
I was like 23.
And you're how old now?
30.
30. Okay, so you've been in it 7 years. And from year one to now, you've built up pretty much almost like a decade worth of experience.
Almost, yeah.
Tell me, what were those early days like for you?
Like the first few training days?
Yeah, well, even just first few years, first 2 years.
Well, I learned a lot because I did a lot of stuff wrong when I first started. Like I trained like, and it's not wrong to train 6 days a week, but I was like training like 6 days a week for like 3 or 4 hours. Like,
Yeah,
I was using the gym as therapy the whole way through.
yeah.
Like,
Wait, 6 days a week, 3 to 4 hours?
yeah.
That's big. Well, you were just telling me earlier.
That's
we
not
were talking,
right.
We were talking
I know.
about Dave Goggins about 30 hard twice a day. Mm-hmm. So how were you doing that?
After I was done my school stuff or like in between my shifts for work, that's what I would do. I didn't do anything else. Like that's where I socialized. That's where everything felt good.
Yeah, yeah.
It was like I said before, it was like the only thing I literally felt like I was doing right.
Yeah.
Because around this time, like I was like, well, once I started getting deeper into powerlifting, I was like not doing well with my grades, right?
Mm.
So like I got to that point where I was like, okay, I'm gonna just take all of my anger and frustration on the gym.
Okay.
I'm gonna just like lift heavier, move more weight, like train harder, the whole 9 yards.
So it was literally therapy for you.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So after you released of all these stresses like the grades, you got the diploma, you're done, you did your time there. How did your passion build on from there?
So I actually started coaching when I was finishing up my degree. And that's kind of where I was like, I kind of feel like I wasted time getting my degree because I got my nutrition coach certification. I got my personal training certification right before I got my degree. And my teacher asked me, she was like, what do you want to do after?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm already doing it. I coach people. Like it changed a little bit because before I wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
And then that didn't fall through. So I still feel a little bit to this day. Like I feel a little disappointed with myself about it for not going for it. But long story short, I basically felt like, okay, I want to help people. I want people to get healthier. So it's like it made sense to just be a coach because I was so obsessed with powerlifting, strongman, just strength training.
And isn't that essentially what a doctor does anyways?
Kind of. Without, charging people $500.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends what kind of coach you are too. There's some people that charge a lot.
Okay. So, but you said, you almost feel bad. I mean, you almost beat yourself up a little bit about it. Why?
As much as it feels like, it just feels disappointing to be a failure sometimes, and it just is what it is. But
now tell me, is it really a failure if you ended up doing something that, would you say you love what you do right now?
I don't think I'd do anything else at this point. Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you're really answering the question for me there, though. You answered, I don't know if I do anything else at this point. Is that...
Well, at this point, no. I'm saying, like, I really wouldn't want to be a doctor anymore. But, like, that's something I really want to do. Like, I wanted to work with cancer patients before. Yeah. So it's, like, it's a big shift.
So I guess
when
a better question would be, if you could go back in time, would you do anything differently in terms of that?
I feel like I would have changed my mind for sure, just because like you never know.
Going back into the doctor pursuit,
or maybe just doing better in school and paying more attention in school.
Okay.
But like I'm not going to use my having ADHD as an excuse because like obviously I have like pretty severe ADHD, but like it is what it is.
Yeah. And when did you realize you have severe ADHD?
Oh, I knew since I was like 5-6 years old. They were like
my doctors told you?
Yeah, they told my mom. They were like, "Hey, you should have him on like Ritalin or whatever." And my mom was like, "Nah."
Yeah.
Standard Hispanic mom thing. Like, no.
Yeah. No, okay.
So
you would go back and you would try a little harder, is what you're telling us. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I feel like I could have done a little better with that. Not that I didn't try hard, but I feel like because I was working like 40 hours a week, I feel like I probably could have maybe pulled that down a little bit and tried to just like focus more on school. Yeah.
So at what point did you decide to go into coaching?
It was like towards the tail end of my degree in college.
Okay.
I quit the restaurant, started working as a coach, and I had a lot of fun doing it.
Okay.
So it was like, okay, like maybe I'll do a nutrition coaching and then I'll move to a gym that's going to pay me more once I'm done. Now that I have the degree or whatever.
Yeah.
No one ever asked me for my degree
Yeah,
or like my resume or whatever. They were like, "Oh, you're good at what you do? Cool, whatever.
Yeah.
Let's take you on the team or whatever."
Okay.
And then I started working for myself, and that's like the most fun I have coaching right now. It's awesome.
Yeah. So it was that you start when? How old were you when you started coaching?
I haven't been coaching that long. I've been coaching for like 3.5, 4 years.
3.5, 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you have to undergo any sort of certification process or anything like that?
Yeah. So I got ACE certification as a CPT, so certified personal trainer. I got the NASM
ACE certification, is that an organization?
I'm thinking of it off the top of my head. ACE is
the
American
acronyms?
Council of Exercise.
Okay, American Council
Sorry
of
about
Exercise.
that.
There you go.
It was
Okay.
like completely something off the top of my
fine.
head. And then there's the NASM, which is the National Association of Sports Medicine.
Okay.
And I got my nutrition certification in that. They're pretty easy to get, so I'm not gonna like brag about them and be like, "Oh, I'm a big deal."
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, a certification is a certification, man.
there's some of them where they're almost like an open book test, so
Really?
it's not really anything worth bragging about, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I this is where, like, once again, skills matter more, in my opinion.
Uh-huh.
Like the harder ones that are worth bragging about will be like a strength and conditioning certification or something like that. You know?
Yeah. Okay. So you decided to start training people, coaching people, you know, just 3.5 years ago, you said 3.5, 4 years ago. And how did you make that jump from, you know, saying, all right, I've been doing this long enough. I like what I'm doing. I'm at the point now where I want to teach people what I know. What made you?
Well, before I was coaching, I'd been doing powerlifting for about at least 4 years at that point, and I'd been doing strongman for about 2.5 years by that point. So there was a little bit of that. I was like, okay, I have experience with these sports. I can get people better at them. I can make people stronger. And then obviously lifestyle stuff is really easy. You know, it's the easiest thing to coach.
Yeah.
Getting people in shape and healthier isn't that hard.
Okay.
As a coach.
Okay.
The hardest part is going to be their attendance, because the lifestyle people quit a lot.
Yeah.
But like,
what does that mean, the lifestyle people?
So lifestyle, like as a coach, you'll have different types of like clients. So you'll have athletes who are like, you know, ball players, powerlifters, strongmen, Olympic lifters, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then you have lifestyle clients who just want to lose weight, look better, maybe get a little stronger, but mostly just like health and vanity, right?
Yeah.
So like very simple aesthetic goals, nothing too complicated. Oh, I want to lose 20, 30 pounds. I want to look good for my wedding. I want to, you know, get more in shape, or I want to have my beach body.
Yeah.
Those are like your lifestyle clients.
Okay. And you work with each and every one of them?
Yeah, I work with all different types, but most of the people that come to me is like currently for like strongman.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Or powerlifting.
okay. So, you know, you're measuring strongman and powerlifting. What's the difference between the two?
So strongman has 5 events, sometimes 6. Like the competition I'm going to has 6. But for the most part, strongman is going to be 5 events. You're going to have some type of loading event, some type of moving event. Sorry. Some type of deadlift. And then you have some type of press event, and then whatever the promoter wants to do. Usually it's about putting on a show, being a spectacle. So if you've ever seen like the guys in like the circus leotards and stuff like that, that's originally kind of the idea of where it came from. It started from a television show called World's Strongest Man.
Oh, okay.
So that's where the sport started, and that's how the format came up. They would change the events every time and basically have like football players, like power lifters, all sorts of different athletes come together and basically go, who's the world's strongest man?
Oh,
and they would do random events, and they wouldn't know what the events were originally.
Oh,
so that's how it started.
Yeah.
Before then, it was like a circus act.
Okay.
And people would like pick up these weird dumbbells, or they would pick up like an axle that doesn't spin, and they'd have to put it over their head.
Yeah.
Or, you know, they would deadlift a car or something like that for like a show.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot of different parts of it that's like kind of mixing the old school and the new school stuff. And that's like kind of strongman.
Yeah.
Powerlifting is really simple. It's a 1 rep max for squat, bench, and deadlift. The guy that has the most total, the highest total wins that event.
Oh, interesting. Okay. That narrows it down a lot more simple than what I knew it to be, which was all over the place. So okay,
I mean, I was saying a bunch there, so I don't know if it was that simple, but
no, I mean, powerlifting, squat, bench, deadlift,
yeah,
right, and whoever could put the most out of all three lifts in terms of weight,
yeah,
powerlifting,
yeah,
and then strongman, 4 to 5 different lifts, right?
yeah,
4 to 5 different lifts, and whoever is able to perform the highest there,
yeah,
right?
yeah. That's pretty much the simplicity of it.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Tell me, what's your favorite lift? And let's 2 segments here. Powerlifting.
Powerlifting or strongman, which one do I like more?
No, I'm saying like in powerlifting, which is your favorite lift?
Oh, my favorite lift in powerlifting is squat.
Squat.
Yes.
Okay. Why so?
Because I feel like it's one of the greatest tests of strength. I know most people will say deadlift, but for me, it's like squat. It's like you have to know that you're coming back up with that weight.
Yeah.
Because it's crushing you down, and you have to prove to yourself that you're getting back up.
Yeah.
So, like, no matter how heavy it is and whatever's pushing you down, like, you're going to stand up with it.
Yeah.
So I find it to be, like, one of the coolest lifts for that.
Yeah. So what has been your heaviest squat?
I strained my adductor recently, but my heaviest squat was probably about 525 for 2.
Sheesh.
So nothing crazy.
Okay. I mean, 525 is 525, man.
It's all right.
I mean, to the average folk, that's heavy. Tell me about strongman. Strongman, your favorite movement there.
My favorite movement is the truck pull.
The truck pull.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
so
my
you
favorite.
literally are moving a truck, or like a fire truck, or like a
Well,
a Toyota Camry. I mean,
I mean,
Toyota.
it depends.
What is it? Toyota Tacoma. Like which one?
I mean, I've arm over arm pulled a fire truck.
Okay.
I've pulled it regularly. I really want to pull a plane.
Plane.
That's going to be on my list of things to do at some point.
Now, how do you acquire a fire truck, let alone a plane, to just say, hey, can I just pull this for like an hour?
Well, there's events where you can like set them up. Like I do that for like my charity events sometimes.
Okay.
You hit up a local fire station. You tell them, hey, we're going to raise money for this, and they're usually down for it because it puts up good press for the fire station.
Okay.
So
The fire station looks for press.
they need it. They're really underfunded.
Okay.
Yeah.
For that reason. Okay.
Well, they're just underfunded, and sometimes doing those events helps them raise more money.
Interesting. So you work with them in terms of like, you're like, hey, I'll give you this, or whatever the case is. Like you work with them negotiation wise.
You can do it that way, or you can just ask if, hey, do you mind if we borrow like an in-service like vehicle?
Yeah.
So if they put it in service, they can't really use it for that day, so that they'll just have you pull it, and they're like whatever about it.
Okay. Interesting. So how do you get a plane?
That's the hard part. I haven't figured that part out yet.
Yeah.
Because one of my buddies was working at an airport, and then he quit right before we were going to have the event for it. Because we were originally going to have like an airplane pool for like the Stop Soldier Suicide event you went to.
Oh, man. That would have been awesome.
And I was like, okay, we're going to have people pull a 60,000-pound airplane.
Oh, my God.
So instead, what I did is technically the year before I was trying to do it again, and it didn't happen. So we got this log truck that was about 75,000 pounds. So it weighed the same as a plane.
Yeah.
So like, and we had people budget.
Wow.
Yeah, we had one of the world's strongest man competitors come down. He
Really?
he moved it a little bit.
What was his name?
Thomas Evans.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a strength coach at UD. He's literally one of the strongest men on the planet.
He
right
just
now.
happens to be a strength coach at UD.
Yeah.
Wow, look at
like,
that.
Yeah, I've trained with him a few times. He's a cool guy.
Okay.
Really nice guy.
I'd be really excited to see that. I mean, geez, to pull a plane. I mean, I could just imagine how what that looks like in terms of a spectacle. Wow.
That's what got me into strongman. Like watching that, I was like, you can pull a
the
plane.
idea of that.
And I was like, this is it for me right
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
I'm going to try to like learn how to pull a truck. And then I realized truck pulls aren't that hard. But they're like a really good like measure of like what I think is like a good mixture between like strength and athleticism.
Okay.
Because you have to be quick, but you also have to like be pretty strong to move it in the first place.
Yeah.
Some people argue on that one. They don't like it as much for a test of strength, but I really enjoy it. It's fun to watch.
Now, there's someone in the driver's seat as it's happening.
Yeah, they put it in neutral and then you pull it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I always watch these videos and I wonder, like, is someone that's really picking up momentum and then they stop to pass the line? Like, what if the car comes onto them?
No, they're not supposed to. They're supposed to hit the brake.
Okay.
Otherwise, someone would die.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm curious. Like, can just like any average person just go up to your show and like if you can the average person just like pull a car. and
Most
stuff like
people
that.
can pull like a standard pickup truck if they go to the gym once or twice a week.
Okay.
I've literally have no failures in regards to this. I have taught every single person how to pull a truck that's asked me to teach them.
Okay.
So
If you want to learn how to pull a truck, you got your
There
guy
you
right here. Okay. No, I'm really interested into that plane one. So all you need is do you have a contact for that? To pull a plane?
I could figure something out. It's not easy
Okay.
because there's a lot of liability issues with it. So
Yeah.
it was like very tough to pass that.
So tell me about that. So when you host, because you also host charity events, right? One of the, and which you just came to mind just now is that how does that look like from an insurance perspective? Is that something you have to have in place?
I have a general liability insurance that I use, but I also have people fill out a waiver for it.
Okay, like
'Cause,
they're all responsible for
Well, at the same time too, though, if you're prepping for a competition, you should already know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if not, come to me. I'll teach you how to do the events. That's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
So I teach people how to do the events for the charity, so I don't feel like a fool when they go to the comp.
Yeah. Okay.
So-
And we're kind of jumping around here, but I'm curious to know, in your time coaching, what are some of the things that you noticed most about people? Like, for example, I own a personal development company, right? What I've noticed in my now 2 years plus doing it is that a lot of people are not as serious about their personal development as they say they are.
Same thing with their health and fitness.
Yeah. So tell me about that for you.
That's like I said before with lifestyle clients.
Yeah.
I like training them and getting them in shape and stuff.
Uh-huh.
But I always tell them, hey, if you're in here for lifestyle, your graduation in terms of training is gonna be not needing me. You learned everything you needed to. You move on to just training yourself at that point.
Yeah.
Because you've learned all the fundamentals. You've understood how hard you should be training, how hard you should be pushing yourself, how you should be dieting, and then you move on from there.
Okay.
Maybe you can refer me to a friend or whatever. That's cool.
Yeah.
But my goal for those lifestyle people is for them not to need me anymore.
Okay.
And it kind of goes that way with all my clients, but with people who are competing I get them to a higher level.
Yeah.
And then if they want to stay there, they can stay there, and they can kind of figure it out from there, or they can just be like, hey, I want to go to that next level.
Yeah.
And that's happened with a few people. So,
Okay. So you typically have lifestyle, and then you have strongman.
And I have some powerlifters too.
And some powerlifters too.
Yeah.
Okay, and then your approach based on that.
Yeah, so most of the time it's just going to vary based off of their goals.
Okay.
And then I can tell if they're all about their goals just by the way they talk about it.
Uh-huh.
If they're like, oh, well, I have a hard time with this, or, if they make up a lot of excuses for why they haven't gotten somewhere, it usually correlates with a lack of intent.
Uh-huh.
So you can kind of read into that. You're like, okay, this person's probably going to skip a lot of sessions. This person's probably going to do this. You might lightly profile them on it, but you'll find out once you're training them.
Yeah.
If they're all about it.
Well, it's almost like it's not wrong with almost profiling them, because especially after so many, coaching sessions with so many different people, is you kind of can almost put together an educated guess on what's going to happen.
Well, the best one that I'll say is almost always certain. And if you're a coach, I really hope you take this into consideration. If you get somebody that no shows before their twice before their first appointment and they didn't have a good reason for it, just don't even bother with them. They're gonna be a waste of your time. What
are some of the reasons you typically get that are not good reasons?
Oh, I forgot. That's the best one. Oh, I forgot I had a session today. I'm I have a whole booking app
How do
now
you forget?
that literally sends it. And it's one thing if I accidentally typed in the wrong name or something, you didn't get it. That's whatever. Obviously contact me if you're like, hey, did we have a session or whatever?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Sometimes that happens where they don't get a notification. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. But there's some people who are like, oh yeah, well, I overslept. That's my favorite one. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, it's 1 p.m. I was like, how are you oversleeping? How lazy are you? Or what did you do last night?
Yeah.
I don't really get that one often. That happened when I wasn't really working for myself as much.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. And have you ever had to fire a client?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you go about that?
I'm just like, hey, I don't.
So, at what point do you decide, all right, I'm letting this person go?
Oh, that's easy.
Okay.
So if someone skips out on 3 sessions in a row, that's usually where I'm like, hey, don't even bother paying me for the next one. Just part ways. It's just, I think it's better for you to focus more on what's going on in life or whatever is keeping you from coming in here. Focus on that first, and then you can come back to the gym when you're comfortable with it. 9 times out of 10, they don't. So I'm like, cool, see ya.
Now, how do you not take it personal?
There's times where I do, but it's just like at the same time though, those people make up excuses for everything they do. Like I had one client, he was making up excuses for why he couldn't do anything, and then he had a very ambitious goal that I wanted to help him out with. But I was like, if you're going to keep making excuses for what you want in life, you're not going to get where you want.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have an excuse for everything.
Yeah.
Why everything's not going well. And it's like, just be accountable.
Yeah.
Like, I know I'm here to help with that, but
Yeah.
I can't do all of it for you.
Yeah.
I can't eat your food for you. I can't train you.
Yeah.
Like, I can't lift the weights for you to make you bigger, basically. You know, like I'm helping train you, but I'm not going to lift the weights for you to make you bigger. Like, that's not how it works.
Right. So 3 in a row, you got to go.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's usually my, like, I do like a 3 strikes policy in that sense. Same thing with like skipping payments continuously or something like that.
Okay.
Like, it's one thing if you pay late every once in a while or if you have like a good reason for it.
Yeah.
Like,
So they pay before, they pay after the fact.
I usually have people pay when they come in.
Okay.
And if they bail a lot or they tend to have no shows, I put up a protection policy for that. And then if they don't pay for that session, then they're just done. If they find a way to get around it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Okay. So how do you manage all that from being the coach to, it sounds like you do nutrition for them too?
Sometimes. It depends on the client.
So
like, there's some people that need help with their nutrition. I help them out with that.
So coaching, nutrition, you also post a lot on social media. You're very active with your followers. You also manage the books, the scheduling. How do you manage all that?
Well, the booking is easy because it's all on an app and it sends notifications out.
Yeah.
So that's easy.
Okay.
And then there's obviously the promoting stuff, which I just put on a website and then it kind of just sends out. I have to apply for like a licensing depending on whether it's a sanctioned event or not.
What do you mean by that?
So for sanctioned events, that would be like where you can qualify for nationals.
Okay.
So I've hosted a few competitions. Like I'm hosting one in February for those of you interested, February 22nd.
Please.
Newcastle Chaos 4 in case you haven't heard about it. But
What's going to go on there?
it's one of the heaviest shows we'll have in the area. Delaware doesn't have a lot of strongman comps, so there's only 2 shows that really happen in Delaware. One of them's Delaware's Strongest Man or Woman, and then you have Newcastle Chaos, which is a show that I host.
Okay. And when is that again?
That is in February.
February. Okay.
Yeah.
Where can people find out more about it?
You can find it on ironpodium.com,
Okay.
or you could also find it on strongmancorporation.com.
There you go. On the official websites. There you go. I like that. So, okay. So you said you're telling me the logistics, but tell me mentally. Do you ever reach like, oh my God, this shit's getting exhausting? Like, do you ever get to those points?
I mean, maybe after the fact, but I like getting the work done first. I get like a high on like, I know I'm not an addictive person, but like I get a little bit of a high off of like accomplishing things, right?
Yeah.
Just like any other business person does, where it's like, oh, I did something right. Nice. We're going to keep moving, right?
Yeah.
Or like something's going the way it's supposed to. I really enjoy that, like I like being able to take control of my life in that sense,
Who are some people you look up to in the industry or have an appreciation for?
An appreciation for and like coaching, business,
Let's take it one by one. Let's talk about coaching.
Coaching,
And specifically the art of coaching.
The art of coaching. Really big fan of Alan Thrall.
Okay.
Really big fan of Mark Bell.
Okay.
It's really hard to think off the top of my head.
Give me one more.
One more?
Yeah.
Ooh, this one's gonna be tough. There's so many.
Okay. So tell me about these two. What's one thing about these two individuals that you have an appreciation about with them?
So with Alan Thrall, what I really liked about him is he basically shows all the compound lifts. He explains them really simplistically.
Compound lifts. What do you mean by that?
So squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press, any strongman movement, pretty much. Olympic lifting lifts like clean and jerk and snatch. Like he has tutorials for all of it, and that's actually where I learned how to do a lot of my lifting.
There you go.
I looked up his videos and I was like, okay, cool. Let me figure out how to do this stuff myself.
Yeah.
Which is it's a little tricky when you first learn it because you do it really wrong the first few times.
Yeah. And the next person.
And then the next person was Mark Bell, which is where I learned pretty much all the powerlifting stuff from. He would have like Ed Cohn show up on his video. And if you don't know who Ed Cohn is, he's like the greatest powerlifter of all time.
Okay, Ed Cohn. Ed Cohn. Okay.
Yeah.
So these are the two gentlemen that is it safe to say influenced how you go things about today? Okay, and then tell me about in terms of running your business.
That one's like, I'm a big Jim Rohn fan.
Okay.
So like I like,
Why does that sound so familiar? Jim Rohn. Okay.
he does like a lot of the motivational speaking for business.
Okay.
And he like talks a little bit about like investing principles.
He's the one that says he's the guy who says you're the average of the 5 people you hang around or something like that. I believe that's Jim
I think
Rohn.
Charlie Munger said that. But
Well, yeah,
there's a lot of the big guys that
Yeah,
said
yeah,
that.
yeah. It's like it might be one of those quotes that's been thrown around a lot. Okay, so what specifically about him?
Well, I really appreciate how his philosophy in life. Like
Yeah.
he's always like, hey, you can be more than you are if you work on it, you know?
Yeah.
You can be better based on your habits.
Okay.
And that's something that I really appreciate that he would say.
Okay. So Jim Rohn. Yeah, Jim Rohn is a very popular guy in business. I've heard about him a lot, especially for friends. Now, do you have anyone you appreciate in terms of just as a human, as a person?
One of my favorite people growing up was Michael Jordan and Martin Luther King.
Okay.
And it was because of the whole I have a dream thing, right?
Uh-huh.
With like Martin Luther King. And then with Michael Jordan, it was like proving it to himself consistently. Like getting so many failures, but still succeeding somehow. Still being one of the best, you
Keep
know?
going. I'm going to share with you one of my favorite Michael Jordan quotes. So Michael Jordan and MLK. And because Michael Jordan, it was the failure one, and MLK is the I have a dream one. Someone texted me the other day or a couple weeks ago about they were pissed off because they threw a game for their team, right? And then it immediately reminded me of one Michael Jordan quote about failure. And I'm going to look it up right now, and I'm going to tell you what it is. And I'm sure you know it, or at least heard about it. It's this. So, I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. If that doesn't want to make you go out there and fail, I don't know what does. In a good way, You know, we had an event recently called the Summer Summit, and one of the speakers, when asked about failure, whether to feel it or whether to embrace it or fear it, he said, if you're going to fail fast and fail forward, right? And fail early if possible. So, yeah, I think a lot of people are in fear of failure, not realizing that, you know, given their perspective on it, success could be on the other side.
Right.
So tell me about the industry itself in terms of socially. You know how, you know, when you're in business, sometimes, you know, this one guy in business, he's a little, like, I don't like the way he does it. He's a little grimy. Like, I'm a big fan of this guy. So it is the fitness industry, the coaching industry, you know, social media. What kind of sentiment do you have of it?
Well, there's a lot of it that's like good information. There's a lot of it that's entertainment. And then there's a lot of it that's, you know, like snake oil marketing, like Herbalife and that garbage.
Okay.
Or like detox teas.
Yeah.
Or you have people who post pictures of themselves super edited and they're like, you could look like this.
Yeah.
It's like, man, you don't even look like that.
Yeah.
So it's like,
This
you
one
get
guy,
this whole
I forget
idea.
his name. There's one guy whose whole page is that. Is just following all these fitness people, and then he calls them out on like the littlest thing. I forget his name, but I'm sorry to cut you off.
Oh, no, you're good. There's a lot of people that do that now. Like they do like reviews on like who's a fake natural and stuff like that. Like, I mean, I wish it was a little more honest. Just because like, I mean, the things that make you a good coach aren't necessarily the sexiest approach per se, right? Like good programs aren't necessarily going to have like super complicated exercises all the time. They're not always going to be like, you know, like changing the exercises every single week, right?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, like they can be a little boring depending on what you're training for. You know, like if you're training for bodybuilding, it can get a little boring because you want to do the exercises that are going to grow the most amount of muscle, right?
Yeah.
And then with powerlifting, it can get a little boring if you're squatting, benching, and deadlifting every single week sometimes, right?
Absolutely.
So maybe you want to switch up the variations and have a little more fun with the lifts. And yeah, there's definitely room for doing that. And I'm not saying don't, but it's more like there's going to be a point where like once you get to a certain level, it's going to be very repetitive.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to get a little monotonous
Yeah.
to a certain degree. And you could say the same thing for strongman, depending on what competition you sign up for. You're like, okay, I got to do this lift again and again and again, you know?
What are your thoughts on the whole drug use and the fitness industry today?
Well, there's a lot of people that do it. there's a lot of people that do it in even ball sports where it's not allowed. There's a lot of people that do it in every parameter, right? There's a lot of people that use it to sell their coaching a lot easier, right? Because if you look exceptional and you look like most people don't, then more people are going to sign up for your coaching, right? Not a real big fan of it. I have nothing against people using it if they're trying to compete at that highest level, knowing that they're untested. So like World's Strongest Man, most of those guys are more than likely on stuff. How much is probably not as much as most people think, but pretty much most of them are on stuff, right? And the same could be said for like all professional bodybuilders are on stuff, right? Because there's like no way you can look like that naturally. So I think as long as people are realistic about it and they understand that, hey, like I'm not going to look like Ronnie Coleman, you know, like as long as people know that off the top of their head, like not getting into drugs and then even being on drugs, you're probably still not going to be Ronnie Coleman, you know, like he's Ronnie Coleman for a reason.
Okay. Can I ask you about some people and then you tell me the first word that comes to mind?
Okay.
First one, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Amazing guy.
Amazing guy.
Yeah. I really liked his blueprint, and that's actually what got me into like lifting in the first place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about when you hear the name Joey Swole.
Oh, that's the gym etiquette guy, right?
Yeah.
That's all I think about. Gym etiquette guy, yeah.
Sam Solik.
College kid that records himself. I don't know.
Okay. Now let's see here. What about lean beef patty?
Chick with abs. That's kind of all I got.
And the last one I got for you is Jesse James West.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think I've seen one YouTube video that he was in or whatever.
Okay.
But I don't really know much about him.
Okay, here's another one. One more actually, sorry. Chris Bumstead.
He's a cool guy.
Cool guy?
Yeah. I'm not super crazy about bodybuilding as much as like I used to be. Because like I started working at a bodybuilding gym at the training center.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff that I saw in the coaching just like really turned me off from it. Not that I won't coach a bodybuilder, but there's certain parts of it where like I just don't want to be involved in certain types of coaching for it. Just because I've seen people like deal steroids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, like sleep with their clients and stuff like that. You see it a lot in like that type of coaching. So I'm like, you know what? I'm good. I'm married. I'm happy. Like, I don't want to deal with that. So
tell me about the promotion that you do. Promotions. Like, how did you get into that? You know, how do you go about them?
So for promoting, it actually started not necessarily out of spite, but it was because I wanted a competition to be at my gym. So I hit up one of the promoters around the area. I'm not going to say his name because like I don't think it was intended to be like something negative, but I took it the wrong way. Okay. So I was like, I'm going to run a show. I'm going to run a big show here. Might not happen right away, but I'm going to do it eventually. Because he was like, no one wants to compete in Delaware. And I was like, I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
So like I ran a charity event for autism.
Yeah.
And got 54 people to compete. And I was like, I can do this.
That's awesome.
My first competition I ever ran, though, only had 5 people. And it disappointed me a little bit, but I was like, okay, let me try it again. You know, I didn't immediately give up on it. And then that was the charity event where I got like 54 people. Because like, it was like, oh, we get to deadlift a car? That's awesome. Like, you know, we get to pull a truck? That's cool. You know, like, I put in events that I knew people would want to try if they haven't done it before. Or if they have done it, they want to do better at it or whatever, right? So
how do you go about choosing a charity?
When I first did it, I did it for Autism Speaks, and I'm not going to say anything negative about the company because like I don't know enough about them. Yeah. But I like when I got like an information like a thank you letter from them, they didn't really send me too much information on where they put the money. Yeah. So that was something I didn't like. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to work with them again. Sorry, Autism Speaks, if you're listening to this, but just nothing personal. Yeah. That's something I just didn't like.
Yeah. So you prefer open book accounting charities?
I just prefer people who go over their finances if you're going to give them like more than $3,000 to $4,000, you know? Okay. Like, I want mostly things that are underfunded. So Stop Soldier Suicide was something I felt like was very underrepresented. I felt like it was something that's like a good cause and needs a little more help. So we made a charity event for that. You know, if I run a charity event, it's for things that are underfunded. Like not next month, but the month after, October 19th, we're doing a charity for for Social Saturday Community. Yeah. That's the name of his nonprofit. And I'm gonna ask him more about why he named it that way because
Yeah.
it's very much a tongue twister, and it's
Okay.
like it's a good cause because he helps adults with disabilities.
Okay.
So like that's like the other charity that I'm helping out for like October.
And where's that being held?
That will be at the training center.
At the training center.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Where's that located again?
Newcastle, Delaware.
Newcastle, Delaware Training Center. And they just recently had a remodel, right? They became an even bigger facility, no?
Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah, I went there once and I was really impressed with the place. It looked really cool. Really cool.
Yeah.
Tell me about this now. I didn't want to forget to bring this up, so I'm going to bring it up now. Delaware's strongest man. How did that happen?
Well, there was a lot of failing. My first strongman competition I ever did, I went last place. Like I barely got any of the lifts in. I was like last on every event. It just did very pitifully, but I had such a good time, and I was like, I really like this.
Yeah.
So I just kept doing it. It got better. The next time I did Delaware's Strongest, I was second to last.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm getting a little better.
Yeah.
And then I almost won an event, and I was like, I might be good enough to win eventually.
Yeah.
So I do my next show, I get second place, and I was like, man, I was really close. Now I just need to not be terrible at deadlifting stones.
Yeah.
And then Delaware's Strongest Man comes around this year, and I was like, all right, I'm going to do everything I can to win this show.
Yeah.
Like, that was my mission for this year, and I did it. I was very fortunate because, like, a lot of the guys that were in the groups, like, they were very strong.
Yeah.
Like, one of those guys way out deadlifted me. I'm pretty sure he should have won that event, but didn't, just because, like, we were on a slope. So for those of you who don't know, in strongman, sometimes you'll compete outside.
Yeah.
Right. And the floor is not perfectly flat like it is in powerlifting most of the time, right? Because you're going to have the plywood and then mats, and then you have your platform set up.
Right.
So with powerlifting, you get a perfectly flat floor every time for your deadlift. Strongman, not always guaranteed.
Yeah.
Generally, you should, but it depends on the level of the show and how much money's put into it.
Yeah. So walk me through that moment when they were going over the scores, and then they finally mentioned your name as being number one. What was going through your head?
I was like, oh, I finally did it. I didn't believe it. I was like, I'm the strongest guy in this group. Okay. I guess I'll go up there and, like, stand up for first place. But, like, it was something that, like, it was one of my goals to do fitness-wise. I was like, okay, I want to win Delaware's Strongest Man at least once.
Yeah. Okay, well, congratulations.
Appreciate it.
That's a huge achievement, man. I'm super happy for you, and I'm excited for what you're going to do in the future. Now, one of my friends, or one of the people that know you, specifically wanted to know this about you. We were speaking about this earlier. You have your lady. You guys are engaged.
Well, we're married.
Married. I'm sorry. Married. Married. There you go. Married. So, what advice do you have for that to get to that point?
So make sure you marry somebody that has the same goals. Make sure you marry somebody that you can bring to your mom. Make sure you marry somebody that you want to have kids with. Even if you don't want to have kids, you should marry somebody that meets all of those parameters, in my opinion.
Yeah. And you are expecting.
Yeah. We're having a baby girl. Yeah.
Baby girl. Have you guys made public the name yet?
Yeah, her name's Zelda.
Elda. There you go.
Yeah, Zelda.
Congratulations, man. That's huge. That's huge. And if you had one parting message to give someone that was in your position, maybe at 20, 18, or even before 23 when you started touching into powerlifting, what would that message be?
Train smart. Like, if you know you could do more, maybe leave more for next week, depending on how hard it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people try to train to failure all the time because there's this big prerogative of that online, right? Like, we see everybody saying, oh, you should train to failure, you should train to failure. Maybe learn to lift right before you learn to train to failure. Like, that's a big incentive that I usually think goes best first.
Yeah.
Train the movements consistently. Don't slack off. But more than anything, don't give up on your dreams. Whatever your goals are, don't give up on them, even if you don't feel like they're going to happen right away. Because, like, you'll definitely overestimate what you do in a year, but you might underestimate what you can do in 10. Who's to say you can't go to nationals?
Yeah.
Who's to say you can't break a state record? Who's to say you can't, like, accomplish whatever you're looking to do?
And Coach, where can we find you?
Oh, you can find me at Triforce Cos on Instagram. If you're on Facebook, you can look me up as Cosme de Jesus Gonzalez.
There you go.
And I have a YouTube channel. It's like Cosme G50 or something like that. And that's kind of it on socials.
There you go. Well, Cosme, thank you so much.
As always,
again.
a pleasure.
Huge pleasure. Thank you for coming here, and we're super excited to see what you got going on in the future and potentially working with you.
Cool. Appreciate it.
That'd be really cool. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, please like, comment, share, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so we can have more amazing guests like Cosme on in the future. And until then, bye-bye.
All right.